r/AskReddit, what was the creepiest or most paranormal thing that has ever happened to you? When I was in college I looked after the house for my parents. I'm a bit of a scaredy cat, so I locked every door leading up to the bedroom when I went to bed at night. I had the weirdest dream that someone unlocked each door and turned on every light. I felt cold and woke up to my dog barking. All of the lights in the house were on and every door open and unlocked. My dog wouldn't stop barking at nothing in the hallway. I sat in the shower with my dog and a phone the rest of night scared to death. Shower? Bad choice there. Bit of a murder hotspot. We lived in a house a few years back and random things would just go missing. Then they'd turn up somewhere else. We never really thought hard on it because they were never expensive or important things. So because of this none of us ever mentioned it to each other. Fast forward and mum loses an earring. Not a huge deal, but it's a nice dangly pair she wears frequently. Maybe a month later I come home and find it perfectly laid out in the middle of the ground at the end of a high traffic hallway. It has 3 doors at the end. Take a photo and show mum. When she gets back, give her back her earring and we discuss the oddity. I mention that lately I've been misplacing random inconsequential stuff like staplers and she looks at me and she goes, "That's weird." Me too. Our housemate gets home and we mention it and he goes, "Oh man, so weird. My razor vanished for a while and I found it back on my sink one day." So basically we are all convinced there was a friendly ghost attached to that house that just misplaced things to let us know they were present. I was 15 and babysitting a neighbor girl down the road from my parents' house. The house was older, but I never thought it was creepy. They also had this awful rat terrier that would bark at everything. Worst dog ever. Once the girl went to bed, I sat in the living room and was watching TV. The dog started freaking out, but instead of barking at the door like normal, she started barking at the corner of the room. Then she would run to another room and bark and come back to where I was, like she was following something. Finally she stayed in the kitchen barking for a solid 2 minutes. Afraid that she was going to wake the girl up, I went into the kitchen to quiet her down. When I walked in I froze and saw that every single cabinet door in the kitchen was open. All of them. I grabbed the dog and ran to the living room. After she stopped barking, I went back into the kitchen and closed everything. Thankfully the dad finally came home soon after. I refused to go back and my parents never believed me. I still get freaked out when I think about it. March 2015. My father passed a month or so earlier. I wasn't sleeping well. I would be up later and later at night. My father used to always give me shit for staying up so late because it's ruining my sleep schedule and affecting my work. Standard parenting stuff. It's about 2:30 am and I'm watching YouTube on my PS4. Power in the house flickers. I check the window. No rain, wind or anything. I figured somebody hit a pole somewhere. Couple minutes later, power goes out for a second, comes right back on. Nothing was affected, which is weird because when power goes out, electronics reset. Check the window again, still nothing happening outside. A couple minutes later, power goes out for almost a whole minute. From the couch, I can see the street light outside is still lit, as well as the other houses on the street. Power comes back on and everything is still as it was. Video continues where it left off. Clocks haven't reset, nothing. It's now 2:37 am. I audibly said okay and went to bed. Next morning I wake up for work. The clock on the oven says 11 something am. My phone says 7:23. It was around 11 when my father left the house the day he passed. Fast forward to January of this year, 3-year anniversary of my father's passing. I can't sleep. I'm upstairs of my new home, watching Netflix. Power flickers and goes out. I immediately said, okay, I'm going to bed. Power comes back on. Next morning, getting ready for work. Oven clock says 11:41 am. Dad doesn't like when I stay up too late. In the house I grew up in, it always felt like you were being watched. I'd see shadows out of the corner of my eye and dark mists that would dissolve when you looked straight at them. My older sister was always scared of the attic, especially. She would barricade the door when we were left home alone. I went in the attic quite often to get various things. It's where we kept large toy containers, old clothes and stuffed animals, and I just liked seeing what I could find. It always felt like I was being watched though. One time I went up there, and as I reached the top of the stairs, I saw a large, translucent alien-shaped white head looking at me from behind a box. I froze, terrified, and locked eyes with it for a few seconds before it slowly lowered itself down to hide. I turned right back around and left, telling myself I had imagined it, but scared to go in the attic 4 years after that. I didn't tell anyone for years. My parents eventually sold the house and we moved, and I've never felt the same way anywhere else I've lived. Oh shit, this bitch can see me. Maybe if I just lower myself real slowly. Nope, duck. One afternoon in college I came back from classes and decided to sit on the couch and have a snack. After that I just passed out. I had a nightmare of some bloody faced demon thing screaming in my ear at the top of its lungs. Woke up and went about the rest of my day. My roommate comes back later that night and goes into his room as I'm sitting in the main living area. At some point he lets out this random startled scream which leads to me running down the hall to see what's going on. He looks at me and goes, "I swear to God someone with a bloody face just walked from your bedroom into the bathroom." I never told him about my nightmare I had earlier in the day. I didn't sleep for 2 days. Nothing ever happened again. Dude had to take a shit. Give him a break. My great grandmother had her rocker and the same thing happened. The night she had passed, my mom and I had already been to visit my grandparents and my great grandmother a couple days. We all knew her time was coming soon, so we wanted to make it memorable. She even met her first great granddaughter when my cousin brought her daughter to see them. The night after my cousin left with her daughter, I had a dream that I was talking to my great grandmother and she had been sharing some wisdom and saying goodbye. My mom woke me up in the middle of that dream at 4:30 in the morning to let me know that she had passed peacefully in her sleep and we needed to say goodbye. Of course, in the grogginess that comes with being woken up from a sound sleep at 4:30 in the morning, I had said, but I just said goodbye and freaked my mom out. Fast forward a couple days past her cremation, we noticed her perfume scent randomly in the halls, the kitchen, and occasionally hovering around her chair. Now, anytime I go to see my grandparents, I'm always greeted shortly after entering their home by the smell of her perfume. It's rather heartwarming honestly. My grandfather passed away when I was 8 and my little brother was 2 or 3. He had this big lazy boy chair in the living room that he always planted himself in. Everyone knew this chair was grandpa's chair. Anyway, we went down to my grandparents' house in Florida for a long weekend to attend the funeral, etc. We're all chatting the first night there in the living room, and my mom was sitting in the lazy boy chair. My little brother goes up to my mom and says grandpa wants his chair back. My mom asks him where grandpa is, thinking he probably didn't understand death, to which he responds, "He's right behind you." My mom bolted off that sofa immediately. When I was about 5 or 6, I was sitting on the back deck of my family home, an old farmhouse. I remember this old lady walking up the steps and going straight into the house without acknowledging me. I follow her inside to see who it is, and my mom is standing in the kitchen room right off the back deck. I ask her who's here, and she gives this confused look. Around that time, the original owner of the farmhouse died, and I'm 100% convinced it was her. I dropped my mug onto the floor accidentally. Heard no noise when it hit the floor. Go to pick it up and it's gone. I honestly went to bed and pondered what happened and slept feeling incredibly uncomfortable. And I never did find the mug. Still bothers me to this day. This was a couple of years ago, but I still remember it vividly. It kind of happened in a dream. The dream itself wasn't that creepy. In fact, it was very pleasant. In my dream, I spent the day with my step-grandfather. He tried to teach me how to golf. We jogged together and ended the day at his house. He needed help cleaning out his room up in the attic, and I was happy to help. As we were cleaning though, I started to notice a theme between all the items we got rid of. Old baseball cards, baseball caps, his entire Stratomatic records. All of these things were very important to him. When I asked him why we were getting rid of these things, he just told me that he didn't need them anymore. It was about then that the dream ended. The creepy bit came when I woke up. That morning, my parents broke the news to me that my step-grandfather had passed away in his sleep. As for all the things he and I threw away in the dream, those were all given to us in his will. My great aunt was in a nursing home about a year ago. Her husband had died back in 2012. They have been together since she was 19 and she was in her 90s. We would visit and unfortunately watch her get worse. There was a nurse that took my mother aside and told her, "This may sound crazy, but I'm a sensitive and there has been this man standing in the corner of the room watching her. When I see this usually means she doesn't have long, maybe 2 days at most." My mom calls me, tells me about it, and we rush to the nursing home to give her our goodbyes. After the last person visited her, she passed away. Hey, what is up guys, Daniel here. Thanks so much for making it to the end of the video. If you liked it, be sure to leave a like. And if you're new to the channel, feel free to subscribe. More content is coming. Stay tuned.